What is considered low income? That's a great question and exactly what we're going to focus on right here in the video. So let's get right into it. All right, now in this video, I do want to discuss the details of a very common question I've seen showing up down below in the comment section a number of times here over the last few years, which is what is actually considered as low income? Again, a really good question because there's a number of different metrics that determine actual low income. Therefore, what I want to talk about in this video, let's get right into it. However, really fast before we do, thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here or if you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe by hitting the button right down below the video, as it's totally free to do so. And because I am your one and only daily advocate, I'm here for you right by your side each and every day, watching all this new information hitting the wire, doing the necessary research, and breaking it all down into these short videos so you can see what is actually going on out there as things are changing rapidly. It's a very busy, confusing, and uncertain time, and we want to know how all of these changes are going to impact our money, benefits, lifestyle, bank account, and of course anything popping up right now we can possibly grab and or take advantage of. So again, thanks so much for joining me. Please subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet so you don't miss any videos going forward, and let's get into it and talk about low income and who falls into this category. Great questions. Let's talk through some of the details because over the last few years here, there have been multiple different designations for low income. And again, I've seen this question hundreds and hundreds of times down below over the last couple years, and there isn't really a good definition for low income. However, there are a couple different dollar amounts that I want to point out for you that have been based on different bills, packages, and proposals, as well as announcements out of very influential people. Therefore, we can probably hammer down some of the details as far as what is actually considered, low income. So, let me talk you through the details because there's a lot of different moving parts here. All right, so first off, we can talk about a few different things that are obvious, like the federal poverty line, which is $14,580 this year in 2023, okay? So that could be one metric that could determine as low income. We could have a survey across the channel and say, hey, what do you think is actually low income? Now again, obviously that's not going to be all that very scientific because we want to know what is actually the determination of low income across like the federal government, as far as what Congress determines as low income, all these details like this, right? We want to know the official number. Okay, well, let's talk through some other details because it was about a year, maybe a year and a half ago or so, the Treasury Secretary was out and she mentioned the determination for low income at that time was $40,000 a year. Okay, well, that's probably a little bit more within line of what low income would actually be determined as. Now, let's look at another metric here because this is actually pretty interesting as well. Remember back to the days as in early 2021 when we got the last stimulus check of $1,400 that was distributed to about 85% of our population, about 282 million people who got those checks. Remember, they determined the people that were going to get them was those individuals who were low income, which was what? $75,000 as an individual or $150,000 as a married couple, okay? So that is what they determined low income as during that time as well. Well, I'm going to say this much. In my honest opinion, I don't think $75,000 as an individual or $150,000 as a married couple is considered low income. But what do I know, right? That is just my honest opinion on that one. That seems a bit high. However, let's talk about some other details. There are some pieces of legislation in Congress right now where some lawmakers do want to distribute ongoing monthly checks on a nationwide basis for millions upon millions of low-income Americans. Again, how do they determine low income? Great question. They have the same threshold, $75,000 as an individual or $150,000 as a married couple. Again, there are the numbers yet again, and in that report, they specifically point toward low income. They're literally calling people who are $75,000 a year or less as an individual or $150,000 as a married couple as low income. Again, seems very high in my honest opinion for somebody who is living in low income. So now let's quickly talk about some of the details here over the last couple of years because I've asked many of you here in the community over some of the videos, the thousands of videos that we have here on the channel, hey, what is your honest opinion and what is your perspective of low income? We've come to the consensus that usually somewhere around the lines of $40,000 to $50,000 is usually considered about low income. Now, other people have pegged that line at about $20,000, but there's not really a definitive line in the sand where the federal government or Congress or the Treasury or the IRS says this is low income. It's just kind of arbitrary. It's just a number that kind of floats around out there. And based on the bill, the package, the proposal, the program, whatever it happens to be at that given time, whatever they come out with the thresholds for eligibility, then that's kind of determined as low income. So the long story, or basically the moral of the story is there's not necessarily a defined number in the sand. However, the best estimation that we probably could say would be probably the federal poverty line. Now again, that's the federal poverty line, because here's the thing though. Is that really considered low income, or is that like super low income? Again, a technical term, right? But the deal is, that is the federal poverty line. Okay, if somebody's below the federal poverty line, would they really be considered low income, or is that like more like a little bit of extreme, as in this person is very low income, we should probably do something to help them out, right? Now again, a couple of things we could look at as well would be eligibility for other programs like SNAP benefits, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, food stamps, maybe even things like internet assistance, housing assistance, utility assistance, all of these other programs that are out there right now to help out the low income and fixed income. We could look at these and think, okay, how do they determine eligibility? Well, let's look at a program like SNAP, for example, or all of these other programs like utility assistance, rental assistance, internet assistance, all of these things like this. These programs generally use a percentage of the federal poverty line. For example, maybe 100% of the federal poverty line. Again, $14,580 this year in 2023. Or maybe they say 125% of the federal poverty line. Maybe they say 130%, 150%, or maybe even 200% of the federal poverty line in some instances, okay? Now again, that does not give us an exact line in the sand saying this is what is considered as low income. However, taking all this into consideration, the federal poverty line, these programs and their eligibility for benefits, as in 100%, 125, 130, 150, 200% of the federal poverty line, as well as all the other metrics and the details out of the Treasury Secretary about maybe a year and a half ago or so, where she indicated $40,000. What it looks like is probably anybody about $40,000 or less would be considered as low income. Generally around the ranges of say 40,000 to say 75 or maybe 80,000 would be considered middle income, or like, middle income people. And then basically anywhere between about $80,000 and $150 would be right around like upper middle income kind of thing. And then anybody above about 150 to 200, somewhere around that range, would be around higher income people, okay? That's generally what this would be identified as. But again, like I said, there's no defined line in the sand that says, $10,000 is low income, $20,000 is middle income, $30,000 is upper middle income, $40,000 is high income, nothing like that. There's no lines in the sand that say necessarily those details, but rather it's just like arbitrary ranges is essentially what it comes down to. There's no defined one number that says if you're below this number, you are low income. But generally, according to what we've been finding and according to the information that's out there, it looks like about $40,000 or so would be considered low income. Now, in some estimations, maybe it's up to about $50,000, but generally, I would say, according to what it looks like, about $40,000 is what would be considered as low income across most of the programs, most of the estimations out there, most of the statements that have been made. However, again, in some instances, like stimulus checks and this other program that I'm talking about that is currently in Congress now, they're calling it $75,000. Now, again, I think that's a little bit high, right? That's a little bit generous to say somebody making $75,000 is low income. $75,000, that is basically the national average for household income in this country. It's actually about $79,000, or it's about $70,000. It ranges a little bit, but it's about 70 or so, 75, maybe around there, $1,000, okay? So that is the national average for the household income in this country, okay? So there you have it. That is about it. And again, a very common question. I've seen this down below so many times here over the last few years, especially as we've seen all these bills, packages, and proposals coming out. We've heard this coming up before where they've said low income, fixed income, or, people below certain thresholds, all these details like this. This is what it really comes down to. So again, hope this one helps you out. Kind of an interesting situation. Who knows? Maybe someday they'll put a line in the sand to say, this is low income, this is middle income, this is upper middle income, this is high income, this is very high income, or something like that. I don't really think they're going to do that because these numbers are always adjusting, right? Every single year. Like just a few years ago, it wasn't that many years ago, where the average household income in the United States was around $50,000 to $55,000. That's no longer a thing. It's right around $70,000 to $75,000 now is the median household income in this country, okay? So the numbers keep adjusting higher, just like the federal poverty line continues to adjust higher each and every year. So anyway, kind of an interesting concept, kind of an interesting question, but again, I wanted to bring this to your attention, let you know what's going on out there, and the details behind all this. It's just kind of an arbitrary range is the best that we can say about it, okay? So hope this one helps you. Again, leave your comments, your question, your feedback down below. I would love to hear from you down below as well. What do you think is considered as low income? Do you think it's 10,000, 20, 40, 50, 100, 2 million? Do you think $2 million is considered low income? I'm just kidding. Obviously, nobody thinks that, right? Except for maybe a billionaire. They might be like, that's low income. But other than that, probably nobody else, right? Anyway, thanks again for joining me. Really do appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet. Go back and check out any of the other thousands of videos here on the channel. And of course, feel free to share this video or any others here on the channel with your friends, family, and social media. Until next time, enjoy your day, have a good one, and take care. I'll catch you again later in the